Hello and welcome to Some of My Friends Read Comics. We've got Vince.
I'm ready for some dick, son.
Oh God, we've got Chris.
I shoot a giant gun at him. Nothing happens.
Great, and I'm Kia. Hello, everybody. We've today we are. This is kind of a weird one. We wanted to talk about the Defenders because Marvel's got the new Netflix show bringing together their cool Netflix people. But if we were gonna do some Defenders comics, it wouldn't really have made sense because all the Defenders comics are you got Hulk, Doctor Strange, Silver Surfer, and Nighthawk.
Namor.
Oh, and Namor. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so kind of a rotating cast there, but didn't really connect with the new TV show at all. And so we're trying to figure out what we could do. And the only thing that kind of did make sense is a little series from the 2000s called Marvel Knights, which only lasted for 15 issues, but it brought together Daredevil and some of the other kind of street-level heroes, like Black Widow, who has a bit of a relationship with Daredevil. We had Dagger from Cloak and Dagger. We had the Punisher was kind of in and out of there. I thought Punisher was meant to be on the team, but we'll get to that. We've got Shang-Chi, the Master of Kung Fu, who I know basically nothing about. And a few other folks that show up here and there a little bit later, but it did kind of what Defenders is doing now, where it brings together the whole, all their street level heroes and puts them together. This series, I think, gets forgotten because people tend to maybe mix it up with the imprint of the same name.
It is fucking hard to Google.
What's that?
It's hard to Google. When you're trying to
It is hard to Google.
It's
like,
let me see
on
what
Wikipedia, it doesn't have its own page. It just has a little tiny listing under the imprint page.
Every other book under the Marvel Knights imprint has a Wikipedia page and or discussion forums to see what people were talking about when it came out. We try to do our research on this show. I don't know how to fucking search for Marvel Knights. Just straight up.
Yeah, it's bad SEO. No question.
Yeah, it didn't really make sense because they don't even their quote unquote team in the book doesn't even end up giving themselves a name at all. They kind of joke about that a couple of times.
Well, Wikia calls it. I think the Wikia fan base calls it Marvel Daredevil's unnamed superhero team.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
It's fine, but also is terrible SEO.
It really is.
And then, but I wanted to think: do the Defenders ever call themselves the Defenders in the Netflix series?
Oh, I don't think they do.
Because at least the Avengers are we're gonna avenge this planet, is what Iron Man says to kind of tie in the title. But
in Defenders, they don't really think of themselves as a team necessarily. It's more we'll team up to take care of this thing together, right? And that's kind of what's happening here, except it's very loose. I have a hard time trying to figure out why this series exists, because it really just reminds me of old issues of Marvel Team Up, where people come together for kind of no reason because they have a similar enemy. They fight bad guys for an issue, and then they part ways. Except this thing lasts 15 issues for some reason.
You might not have enjoyed the Defenders either, because that's the same basic premise.
You're talking about the show?
No, the comic.
The comic. Well, I do know. I haven't read any old classic Defenders stuff at all, but I do know that they kind of, develop a little bit differently as a team here and there, especially when they start bringing in some of the other characters like Valkyrie and Nighthawk and all that.
They spend the first 2 years of that book, every issue, they're like, this team is over. See you all later. And Hulk leaps away.
Yeah, it's I'll see you when there's a crisis. And I know that much. And they only come together when they're needed, which is, I think, an interesting premise for a book. Maybe not interesting at all. But anyways, so we're not really talking about Defenders. We are talking about Marvel Knights. And, so this thing is written by Chuck Dixon, who...
Chucky D.
Pun, my God, Chucky D. What? I don't know if I've read anything else by him, and I don't know that I want to anymore.
I think he read... Did we cover Robin Year One? He wrote that. Chuck D wrote that.
Yes.
Did he create Tim Drake? Did we come down on that?
I think he did, but I don't remember.
Okay. He actually is responsible for my first 90s comics I ever read, or comics I guess in general, which was in the 90s. Robin 2, The Joker's Wild, which is where Tim Drake has to go against the Joker the first time he ever has to, knowing that he killed Jason not Jason Patrick. That's not his name.
Yeah, Jason Todd.
Jason Todd.
Yeah.
But I when I see Chuck Dixon's name, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be like well-written 90s comics is usually how I look to him fondly.
Yeah, he's mostly, I would say, a Batman writer.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got that style that kind of fits. Like, it just reminds me of being a kid picking up a comic book and just like, you're going to read an adventure where there's some fighting and like, it's just like standard comic book. And like the art as well, Ed Barretto. Like, it never jumped out to me as being like particularly bad or particularly good. It's just like standard comic book art. And so I think my overall, I'm going to give it away early. My review of Marvel Knights, standard comic book. That's just the only thing I can say about it.
I would agree. I think though that Ed Barretto does a pretty good facsimile of like Joe Quesada art, just without being Joe Quesada.
Yeah.
And I think that Klaus Janson doing the inks makes it look better than it probably could. He's definitely
the inks and the coloring. I feel like do a lot of work in the art on this.
Yeah,
it did pop. It did pop quite a bit, but it didn't. It was never bad for me. It was never like amazingly good. It was just like, okay, cool. It's good.
I would consider. I've never heard of Ed Barretto. I would think that, given the right book, he could have been a much bigger star because I think he's perfectly serviceable in this book.
Yeah, perfectly. I was looking at his sort of bibliography. He seemed to do mostly DC stuff, and I'm always more of a Marvel guy, so I just kind of never came across most of his stuff. But should we just jump into the story here and see what's going on? We read the first 6 issues of this, which kind of has 2 little 3-issue arcs. The whole story does seem to build over the course of 15 issues, and if I'd cared more, I might have dug a little deeper to see what else was going on, but I didn't. Anyways, the first issue starts off with a little bit of promise. I kind of like how we get that classic Daredevil versus Punisher kind of, oh, you're mean and you use mob tactics against the mob, and Daredevil, you're too nice and you're a choir boy, altar boy, all that. The basic stuff. I'm like, okay, good. We're setting up some character relationships.
But like
right.
they established Daredevil as like the choir boy because like he won't kill. But at the same time, it's like he's a fucking maniac for it basically roll in. Daredevil's beating up a guy. Punisher rolls in, shoots the guy in the kneecaps, and then they have a conversation. They're like, so what do you want, bro? Well, there's some other good things, kill mobsters. I got these tips, I got these clues. Okay, cool. Meanwhile, there's this guy just like writhing in pain because his kneecap's been shot off. And Daredevil doesn't seem to be like, what the fuck, man? He's just like, okay, cool. Let's just have a conversation, And I'm like, I thought it was fucked up. I don't know if anybody else did.
It definitely was. But I did get the sense that he was trying to create some sort of character background there.
Yeah, I like that scene. I think it's fun because you get the sense through action of like, okay, well, Daredevil he's going to be the good guy, but not in the like Cyclops like boring way.
Mm-hmm. And then I did get a little tired throughout the whole thing of Punisher constantly referring to Daredevil as choir boy or altar boy. I think there was one page where he did it 3 times, and I'm like, all right, dude, we get it.
I like my Punisher quiet, and I don't like him editorializing. Like, I don't like him having opinions about people. I like him like stating facts. I don't like him being like, looks like I've got to do this again. These are loser superheroes. Although I do like that. I do like that line because basically people are killing Russian mobsters, but there's like this weird like green mystical thing, which is kind of like the Defenders TV series. And Punisher's like, this is fucking out of my league. I'll call the Daredevil. He'll call the Fantastic Four or the Avengers or somebody, and then they'll come in and solve my problem, and that's good. And then I'm jumping ahead, but Daredevil rolls in with like Black Widow and Dagger. And Punisher's like, fuck, like these loser heroes? I was not expecting this.
The Avengers, yeah, man.
Like if I went to Daredevil because I was expecting a little better than this. But most of the part, I don't like Daredevil's I don't like Punisher's editorializing. I think it misses the point. I like either Punisher to not talk or to just state facts.
We also get very little in the way of backstory about Black Widow and Dagger and why they're there. It's just like they're there and they all run into each other. And it's like, oh, cool, you're with me now. Cool.
Is Black Widow Catholic?
I guess so. I don't know.
We meet her in a coat. She's wearing a coat over her classic leather costume at confession, like it's a normal thing she does. at this tiny church. Okay, and then bad guys show up, try to steal the priest, and for some reason Dagger's also there. And then I understand why Daredevil hears like a robbery going on at the Catholic church and is like, jumps in to save the day. And so I understand why Daredevil and Black Widow would have run into each other, assuming that Black Widow is Catholic and goes to confession regularly. That part didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that part doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Dagger's only explanation for being there is that she's looking for Cloak, her partner, which, like, okay, I was like kind of minorly interested in. I was like, okay, great, I'm excited to hear more about this. And we kind of don't hear anything else. We do see a few scenes of Cloak throughout this whole thing of maybe he's kind of lost it a little bit. Like he's, his power is that his cloak can suck people up and throw them out anywhere else. And we see him sucking up people who are parking in handicapped spots who aren't handicapped. They're taking 2 newspapers instead of 1. And like
that part was great.
I wanted to see more development out of this instead of just like, okay, now we're going to see him do the same thing he did, but in a different situation. And okay, the same thing in a different situation. Great. And we just kind of never learned anything else about it. I assume we would later, but that was the one part that I was like, oh, I want to know more, and I kind of didn't get it.
So here's
I think that's the next arc based on the covers of issues 7 and 9.
That makes sense. I know Doctor Strange kind of shows up in those issues, which makes a little bit of sense. What's going on with him?
So Kia, here's a hot take: Cloak and Dagger are boring. They're not interesting.
I can't say that I've ever read a proper Cloak and Dagger story, so I don't want to say that. But I do think that in this book, for sure, totally boring.
But
There's
then
nothing to, yeah.
The only thing I'm interested in is the fact that they're separate, which does something to one of the characters to then have like an impetus to do something.
The only time we get any like conversation from Dagger that isn't related to like who we're looking for or what are we fighting or things like that is when they get to Black Widow's apartment, and Black Widow's like, oh yeah, my apartment's cool. What's your apartment like? And then Nick Fury's there, and they say, oh, never mind. We got to talk to Nick Fury. Right?
Yeah, that was a weird scene, too, because Nick Fury, she's like, why are you paying attention to me? Nick Fury's like, because you work for me. And I'm like, as opposed to Nick Fury being like, because you're a Russian spy operating on American soil. It's my job to be fucking interested in shit like that. Like, that's what I would have written.
It makes sense.
Well, I mean, she has been like a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent forever. I feel like Dagger is used better in Runaways because at this point, like, Cloak and Dagger were a teen superhero group in like 1982 or something like that. And like they tried to have their own comics through the 80s and maybe even into the 90s. But it's like, this is 2000. Like they've been teenagers for like 15 or 20 years, like move on. The new Warriors are around. There's all these new heroes that are constantly being made. Like age them up into being actual adults. I don't understand why she's like written like she's 16 years old at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember the last time I read them in anything like proper. I don't know what they're up to.
I think there was
a
twist in one like alternate universe where they had switched powers. Whoa!
Whoa!
Well, right, I mean, they were in Civil War, and they were in, I think, Spider Island or one of those events. Like there were kind of occasional Spider-Man guest stars.
They're in the Maximum Carnage video game. I know that.
Yep.
They're good guest stars because nobody cares about them, so you can kind of do anything you want with them.
And they have kind of neat powers, and I do like we've been kind of shitting on this book. I think this book is pretty cool, honestly. Like
okay,
I enjoyed it because the things I liked about it. One, I liked the character interactions of like not everybody is like pals. Like everybody has a distinct voice, and they don't all like know each other, and they're not exchanging like secret superhero handshakes. And I think all that's cool. And then I also like just the idea, both the arcs involve the Punisher getting like way out of his league, and the fact that, he's in, Marvel Universe, New York City in the early 2000s. So he's like, well, I want to kill gangsters. But then he keeps running into like, supernatural monster creatures that are, so far beyond what he is supposed to fight. Right. I think that's a fun juxtaposition.
Okay. And I think that's where I think maybe like the TV show also kind of fell short, but I like the concept of some of the street level heroes and some of the more mystical heroes merging together to have to fight something that's kind of out of their league or out of their depth, because we haven't even gotten to the secret villain of issue 1 is a Thor like troll or Ulik, is that his name?
Ulik, yeah, something about a horn. He's got like a magic horn,
right? Which is cool that like suddenly like Daredevil is like Daredevil and Punisher are dealing with like Thor Asgard shit, and Thor's nowhere to be found. Like that's cool to me, and I think the potential of like the hand mysticism as it like developed in like Daredevil season 1 was really cool. Like I thought we were just fighting the Kingpin, but then there's this lady who has like the Iron Fist punch, and like that's crazy.
Yeah,
like what the fuck is going on here? And like there's. I think the Netflix verse kind of like fell short on it, but I agree with Chris that I think that this comic series handled that better than the Defenders TV series did.
Oh, I disagree. I feel like the TV series gave me kind of a reason to care about every character's involvement, whereas with this, it was just like, okay, we're dealing with this, and it's mystical and supernatural, and it didn't feel like there were a lot of stakes involved.
Oh, I'll agree with you. Like, I don't know how the fuck Shang-Chi like falls in any of this. But I think the villain and the mysticism I think worked better in the comic. But I would agree with the character relationships kind of here and
there. So the first 3 issues, I was like, okay, I'm going to see where this thing keeps going. And I'm sorry, I'm gonna keep on disagreeing with y'all because the next 3 issues is where I really was just like, oh my god, this thing. I did not. There was a scene where they're all sitting at a diner, Daredevil's in costume, looking over files with everything, like drinking coffee with the others. I'm like, all right, what's going on here?
Which I love.
I know, I knew you would like that kind of thing. It's funny. But
I mean, at least
later. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, at least in Defenders, like they closed the Chinese restaurant before.
Right. It kind of makes sense. Yeah. But he's got a line later when he's jumping across the rooftops, and he says, heights mean nothing to a man without sight. Up and down are only directions. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about, man? Like, what? I don't know. But he runs into Moon Knight, who wants in to this group that he's formed. We're still not given a reason as to why Moon Knight wants in. Nobody questions him on this. He's just willing to fund this team. And so they're like, okay, you can fund us now. Cool. So Moon Knight kind of joins in.
I didn't realize Moon Knight was a blonde dude. I didn't realize he was blonde.
I've always liked Moon Knight. He does have that kind of weird, kind of similar to the Tick, which we were talking about a couple episodes ago. He's like, is he crazy? Is he not? What's going on? I like that aspect of him. We don't get any of that here. He's just a rich guy who is going to pay for the team. All right, cool.
I mean, it's kind of a crazy move to give Daredevil a bunch of money to fight crime.
Yeah.
Well, and let him fly a fucking plane.
What's that?
Daredevil flies a plane in issue 5. And I'm like,
I'm even thinking about that. You're right, he does.
I'm like,
oh my god,
how's he flying this plane? Like, he must be able to hear like the different gauges and stuff in the plane, because otherwise, I don't understand how he's doing this.
I don't either. He did drive a car in, I think, in Born Again when we were reading that, way back when.
Was the top down?
The whole reason this crew stays together is because they want to take down the Punisher, which is again just one of those premises that bothers me, because there's like so much other shit going on, and this guy's like, you don't agree with his methods, but he's trying to do some good here. Maybe put that on the back burner and deal with some of the more important stuff that's going on here.
I mean, their stated purpose is to deal with the Punisher, but I don't think they, like, at least in this arc, like, do they ever interact with that Daddy Wronglegs thing?
No, just Punisher. Yeah, Daddy Wronglegs. I did like that. A big old spider thing that had nothing to do with anything, but it was cool. And
he looked like General Grievous from Star Wars, like 5 years before. and Punisher's just there, and he's like, you know what? None of my guns are working, but I do have a low-yield nuke. Like, I might use that. And we're like, this is the Punisher I like. It's like, yeah, I'll just nuke this whole city. Like, that works for me. But, man, Punisher talks too much.
He does talk too much. So that's, like, the main... half of the main fight for that section. The other half is a Shang-Chi thing, where Shang-Chi's dad, I guess, is sending someone out there to kill him.
What's a dude named Weapons Master. He's promised a whole country for killing Shang-Chi, which I don't think that's a reward. I don't think, like, if I killed somebody and they gave me like, here, now you rule over these millions of people, I'm like, I don't know about that. That seems like a shitty victory. I know.
There's also this moment at the end of issue 4 where we kind of see that it's Shang-Chi's dad who's hired it. We don't necessarily see his face. It's a dude in the shadow, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, dudes in shadows, cool. I can't wait to see who this guy is revealed to be. And it's literally that same page he says that he is Shang-Chi's father. I'm like, why is he in a shadow if we're not supposed to? Wait, what? Are we not supposed to know who he is, or we are supposed to know who he is? I don't know.
Well, I think they were. I mean, because they redesigned Zarin, I think they were at least trying to redesign Shang-Chi's dad, because his dad is the Yellow Claw, and I can't imagine them using the 1960s version of that character's look, or 1970s even, I guess. Ugh.
Which was what was it exactly?
Fu Manchu, long goatee, yellow skin, maybe even green skin, long fingernails.
Oh boy, yeah, that's I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, where it's like even in 2000, it's like, ooh, probably don't want to have him look like that anymore.
Yeah.
I think Jimmy Chu has fought that character in Agents of Atlas since then, so I'm sure he was redesigned.
Did you see Jimmy Chu, or is it Jimmy Woo?
Jimmy Woo, that's right.
Jimmy Woo's going to be in something. I can't remember. Randall Park from Fresh Off the Boat's going to be playing him in something.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh, that's cool.
I'm very excited.
Should have been Tim Joe.
Yeah, should have been Tim Joe. Tim Joe's busy. Or no, Pitch got canceled. R.I.P. Pitch. No. He's doing really well for himself, though. Tim Joe is one of our friends from college. He's been on several sitcoms.
I see. Okay, I'm like, who is this guy we're talking about?
He's been in a lot of good things. We love you, Tim Joe.
Anyway,
we love you, Tim Joe.
The
Never
point
mentioned
is,
Tim Joe, but I love
I like Shang-Chi calls Daredevil out when they're in that diner where he's like, he's the greatest evil that this city faces. He's like, really? Evil? Yeah. Doesn't really sound like it.
We also, at the end of that Daddy Wronglegs fight, the Punisher gets saved by the Fantastic Four. Kind of unintentionally. They're just like dealing with this weird alien thing because the Fantastic Four is always dealing with that shit. And they also don't recognize the Punisher, which was kind of funny.
I think Daddy Wronglegs is the alien that one of the aliens they were dealing with. I'm rounding up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great name, Daddy Wronglegs.
It is such a good name.
Bring that guy back.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of this whole thing. I would have preferred to read a Daddy Wronglegs series over this.
Well, and the best part is that Punisher, when he hears the name, he thinks it's like a, like Mikey, whatever, Two Toes, where he's like, oh, this is slang nickname on the street. And then he shoots him and is like, oh, he's a monster.
Yeah. What else happened?
I really like that part of that, Chris. I think I missed that on the first go around. That the Punisher really is like in over his head, like he's approaching everything in this book like his other Marvel Knights book or like a Garth Ennis book, and then it's not. I like that. I just wish he didn't talk so much.
Yeah, and I do like the fact that he's sort of on the team, but also the team sort of hates him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a hard time getting a read on that. I just had a harder time with this book than you guys seem to.
I let it go, because I'm reading this and I'm like, okay, so how does this Cloak Dagger and Shang-Chi fit into whatever is going on with Daddy Wronglegs? And I'm like, I think that it's like an A, B, and C plot, and they don't even overlap. Or I just stopped caring halfway through reading this.
Yeah, I think my expectations were I didn't really know what to expect, and I still don't know what this thing was trying to be exactly. I think I would have to sort of read the whole thing to figure it out, but it just wasn't for me.
I think I would have dropped this after 2 issues.
If we weren't doing it for this, I would have dropped it as well.
If I had been reading it contemporaneously, I think I would have dropped it after 2 issues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy it because, like I said, it's. I like team books, and I like team books where the characters don't get along.
Yeah.
So and the fact that they don't all have decoder watches, they're not all pals. The fact that Dagger is really only part of the team, like because she's looking for Cloak, and like everybody keeps acting like they're like, well, we got to do this thing, and she's like, well, that's not really why I signed up. Like, I want you to help me find my friend. Like, you have all these shield connections. Can you do something? And she's like, yeah, I'll get to it.
So I compared it to Marvel Team Up earlier because it does have that same sort of like, okay, we're kind of randomly going to team up for a little bit and then part ways. And I kind of I mean, maybe I would like it more if I finished it, but I like that sort of done in oneness of the old Marvel team up books, where it's like, okay, we kind of get that team up of like, however these two characters are going to interact with each other, and then it's done. We can go on and try it again with a different character and just see what happens. Which I like that. The Thing had his own series too, Marvel 2-in-1, where the Thing would go around teaming up with people, right?
Yep.
I never read any of that. Maybe one day we'll do some of that. When the Thing gets his own movie, maybe we'll. That's never gonna happen. Oh boy.
He doesn't even. Is he even in a comic book these days?
The whole Fantastic Four. Boy, I've been out of the loop for a year or two here, but after the last big Secret Wars event, the Fantastic Four was kind of. Oh no! He was up in the Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah. It was just Reed and Sue who kind of weren't around for a bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Johnny Storm is at the Inhumans, and yeah.
Everyone's favorite characters. We all grew up with them, the Inhumans. So excited for that TV show.
Yeah, did you see how badly?
I'm gonna watch it, but I'm not excited about it.
So apparently Scott Buck is the showrunner, and you may know Scott Buck from Iron Fist in the last season of Dexter, and he's the show. So.
No. Wow, with a track record like that, how could he go wrong?
Oh, this poor guy. Oh, poor Scott Buck.
I don't feel bad for him. He keeps getting jobs.
You're right. Yeah. That's. Oh boy, that was. Oh boy. Now I'm even less excited for Inhumans. I did not know that. Oh God, why did you have to tell me that?
Because I care about you, and I don't want you to watch 20 hours of garbage telling me it's going to be good eventually.
What?
Nothing.
What are you talking about?
I just don't want you watching 20 hours of garbage and be like, it's gonna turn around.
It's all right. It'll be on when I'm farting around on my phone or getting computer work done. You know?
I still need to watch Shield
at some point. You have to pay attention to. Yeah. You still what?
I still need to watch Shield at some point.
Boy, it only gets better and better for me.
Really? It's been getting better? Okay, that's good.
This last season, I think did so many crazy things that I never thought I would see in a Marvel TV show. Which I quite enjoyed it. Alternate realities, Ghost Rider, had some magic demon stuff. They had some AI life model decoy stuff. Yeah, man, it's good stuff.
You had me at alternate universes. I'm on board for it. I still need to watch Fringe if we're talking about that, but that's another story for another time.
Oh man, yeah, watch some Fringe. Oh my God, let's just start a Fringe podcast. My God. Let's not. All right.
Fringe Festival.
So
that's what it's called.
What's that?
Our podcast will be called Fringe Festival. Our Fringe podcast.
No, we can't call it that. I think they would probably not let us.
Okay. So,
but if we did develop a Fringe play to take to the Fringe Festival, that would be a lot of fun. All right. I'm done. I'm done talking about Fringe, and I'm kind of done talking about Marvel Knights. You guys have anything else you want to say about it?
No. Well, I mean, I keep talking about the Punisher being too talky. And there's one part where he's like, and it comes down to me again. And I'm like, he says that at the end of issue 3, when then he, beats up Ulick. And I'm like, Punisher, you don't resent anybody for being a loner. Like, everybody disappointed me, so I guess I have to do the job. Like, that is so out of Punisher's character that it really frustrated me. Like, all of his narration. Their issue 4 starts off like completely silent, and I was like, to the point where I thought, is this the month where Marvel didn't have any words in any of their comics? But no, it's silent for like the first 5 or 6 pages. Then Punisher narration out the wazoo, and then silent again. And I'm like, Punisher is the one character that I think Greg Rucka had a run where his entire first arc, Punisher said 3 words the entire time. Because he just rolls in, kills everybody, and then leaves. Mm-hmm. And that's
it's a very 90s. I mean, Chuck Dixon. I think Punisher is the only character he'd written before of this group.
Oh, really?
And it's a very 90s approach to writing Punisher, where it's there's a lot of talk about what guns he has and stuff like that. Which I don't care about guns enough to know what that means. It sounds impressive, but then it never does anything because he's fighting, aliens or Norse trolls.
I'm sure our conservative fans, who I know we have a million of them listening to the show, I'm sure they love the gun talk.
me and Chris,
they can correct me about how accurate Punisher's description of his armament was.
Me and Chris were on
a Norse troll.
Yeah. None of these bullets are working at all. What was your quote, Chris? Did you use that quote or no?
Something like that, yes.
Play
the tape back.
Play the tape back. We'll figure out what he said. I think that just about closes the book on Marvel Knights. I'm not going to finish out this series.
Nope.
Chris, are you going to finish it out?
Maybe, because it's very short, and these are really quick reads.
Yeah,
they were very quick reads. Yeah. So I appreciated that at least.
It's all on Marvel Unlimited.
So check it out, or don't. I don't care. Next time, we are going to talk about... hey, you know what movie just came out that was also really good? Guardians of the Galaxy 2. It's on home video, digital release, VHS these days.
Yep.
We've never really talked about any Guardians of the Galaxy on this show. And so we are going to read their kind of reintroduction to the Marvel Universe. The whole, the team as you probably know it from the movies, like Rocket Raccoon, Star-Lord, all that, didn't really exist until the mid-2000s. The original Guardians of the Galaxy was, what, the 70s, 80s?
It's just like 1990, actually, I believe is the actual...
was it? Okay.
So did you see...
the team is from the 70s, but yeah, the book was from 1990.
Yeah, the end of Guardians 2, which I've seen, all the Reavers at the end are the original Guardians team. So like Stallone and Ving Rhames and Michelle Yeoh, they're all original Ravager. They're all original Guardians.
Yeah, that's okay. Starhawk and Charlie 27 and the rest of the old Guardians.
Because I was like, what is Ving Rhames doing in here for literally half a second? I was really mind blown. And that's what that team is.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how they use them in the next movies, or if they even maybe get their own movie, which I had no idea Sylvester Stallone was even going to be in this movie. I'm like, oh my God. He's like part of the Marvel Universe now. This is crazy.
Well, hopefully it would be something set like 40 years ago. I would hope.
I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I'd watch a Stallone and Ving Rhames and Michelle Yeoh movie. I'd watch that today.
Yeah.
I wouldn't watch a Stallone movie today.
I've seen some terrible Stallone movies. Literally today I watched 6 terrible Stallone movies. So anyways, we're not doing any Sylvester Stallone comics. We are going to read Annihilation, which was a pretty big Marvel event from the mid 2000s, where they'd kind of been neglecting their outer space stuff for a long time, and this was a bit of a reintroduction to the outer space stuff. There was like a bunch of different miniseries that eventually fed into the main event. So we're just going to read the main event, Annihilation. I think it's about 7 issues, written by Keith Giffen, art by Andrea DeVito. And I've never actually read this. This is one of those ones that I'm like, oh God, I really need to eventually get to this. So I might actually read all the tie-ins beforehand, just so I've got that like fresh in my mind to get into. But
there's a lot of them. There's a Silver Surfer, Ronin, Drax,
Nova.
I think it was might be some of the prequel material, but yeah, the Drax as God of War character comes from this, and Star-Lord hadn't been seen in like 20 years. So the fact that he's now, a major movie character, which is so crazy.
It's crazy, yeah. I mean, Marvel took such a big gamble on that, and we'll get into all that next time.
I don't even know if the Guardians are actually in Annihilation. I think they may show up in the sequel. Conquest is when they're actually like formed with like Rocket Raccoon.
I think they're formed as part of, or at least kind of loosely formed in Annihilation, but I could be wrong because I know Drax shows up and Star-Lord and some of the others show up.
But this is definitely
Yeah. We'll talk about it. We'll see. I'm kind of excited for this. I've always meant to get into it, but I'm like, all right, I got to start with Annihilation. I'm going to start with Annihilation. Never did. So.
And the other secret thing I wanted to do is because I want to talk a little bit about Sputnik, and more importantly, Sputnik 2, which is where the Russians sent the first live like Earth thing into space. They sent a dog, and that dog is in the Guardians of the Galaxy books. Cosmo, the space dog.
Right.
Has a cameo in the first movie.
Yeah, because Sputnik 1 is October 4th, 60th anniversary, which I don't know if that's before the next episode or not, but space.
Boy, that dog gets used in a lot of cool media. We'll have a whole section.
That poor dog died. There's a whole comic that I love, but I didn't want to read for this show called Laika about that poor dog that dies in space. Oh, yeah. They sent him up. They didn't have any plan to get him down. That dog just died.
Oh, man. What if they had sent up a lady dog up into space first, and then sent him up later?
Actually, I think Laika
Mars?
may be a girl. I'm not sure, but
oh my goodness.
Apparently, anyways, it's surviving
Mars
in the Marvel
Needs
U.
Dogs. Isn't that movie based on it? Mars Needs Dogs. All right. I'm tired. I'm making dumb jokes. So
Mars needs dogs, and on that note,
yeah. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Chris. I love you.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh my God! Wow, rejected. Thank you, Vince. I love you.
You're welcome.
God damn it. Well, thank you, listener. I love you, and I'm sure you are yelling at your podcast as loud as you can that you love me too, because boy, do I need it right now after getting rejected by these two bozos. Hope you'll join us next time. I love you so much. Thank you for listening. Good night. Bye.
Mars already has a dog. It's the Mars rover.
Oh God damn it! Yeah, put that at the end. That's a good joke for the end.